Run, party, repeat. Welcome to the East Coast Adventures Dirt and Vert Podcast, where we talk all things running, racing, and training to help you get ready for your next big adventure.
Learn from our successes and our failures, and have fun at the same time. Join us right here every week with inspiring guests who share their captivating tales from the trails. And remember, nobody cares.
Run faster.
All right. Welcome back to the Dirt and Vert Podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we'll just let him go ahead and say who he is.
Mike Taylor
Is our guest today, our actual guest. This is the first time Mike's actually been on the receiving end of this podcast, so he gets all the questions today. So.
Yeah, 110 episodes, and I finally get on this thing.
But Mike just had a pretty epic finish at No Business. He got his money's worth in that race. Every single mile was earned in that one. And he probably marked most of the course with fluids. But, what's really cool, and the reason we wanted to have Mike on here, not only is he the co-founder of East Coast Adventures, but ultimately, Mike is the one that got me kind of started in running. And, I know a lot about Mike, but I don't think everybody knows as much as I do. So it'd be fun to have him on the podcast, let you all learn a little bit about who he is and how he got into running. And then also he has just a really good story about No Business, and a lot of questions have came up because this man went all the way down to the wire. People had counted him out. I mean, counted him out. I think Mike counted himself out. And somehow he drug his ass out of the trenches and finished this race when everybody had almost given up. So Mike didn't give up on himself. And it's really cool to see that, no matter how bad you are or how bad you are in your head, there's nothing that you can ever count yourself out if you can will yourself through it. And that's exactly what Mike did. And I'm pretty sure he didn't want to will himself through it, but he did. And I think it's going to be a really good story at the end of this podcast. But for now, Mike, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into running.
Oh, how I got into running. Well, that's a long story itself and everything, but I think you know most of it. But then back in, I'd always been an athlete to some extent, never the big guy, probably no matter what, probably when I graduated, no matter what, I was probably 100 pounds at best. But I was always the kid that wanted to be outside all summer long. I had no desire to be on computers, anything like that. It was just, I was just wanted to be outside riding my bike or running or playing soccer. That was it. Soccer was my go-to as a kid. Grew up playing it in every form I could. Even got to go up Minnesota one time as a teenager and play in like a World Cup, things like that. Graduated playing soccer. We didn't have cross country, small school, country school. We didn't have cross country until I got my senior year. Had two teachers that volunteered to be our coaches. I don't know that they were necessarily runners themselves, but they volunteered, stepped up. We competed, didn't know anything about anything, but we had fun running. And then I just kind of found a love for running. And then life goes on, you taper off and so forth, got married. Then saw Knoxville Marathon at some point. I think, I don't know how old Knoxville Marathon is now at this point. Is it?
It's pretty old.
It's pretty old. I saw that. I don't even, I guess that it would have been times when you could still sign up on the internet and everything like that, but I knew nothing about that. I just saw 26 miles and I thought that sounds cool. And didn't have a training plan, never ran. Just winged it. I had a pair of flat tennis shoes. I had a pair of those hiking pants that you take the shorts and unzip that. I had that, and I had a t-shirt and just a regular, just went. And 4 hours, 40 something minutes, I think, finished and everything. I think then you got to finish on the field back then, actually. So it was really cool, but I didn't run after that because that sucked the life out of me too. I didn't train for it, but didn't know what to expect. And I thought, well, I just want to run that. Life goes on. You always just kind of run this or run that, but I don't think I probably done some random 5Ks in there back in the day, but I think a real running story just kind of starts around 2016 and 2015, 2016. And I just got this. Everybody goes through things in life, and I'll reveal some of myself and so forth like that, because I think that's the only way a podcast should be. Is, when you're going through things in life and you're just like, feel like you're by yourself, that was where I was at. I didn't know, having no way of venting any of my emotions or frustrations, young kids, tough marriage and so forth like that. And me and my wife are truly in love with each other and everything. But in any true marriage, I don't think it's always, roses and so forth like that. And like I say, we were going through our bump in the roads, and it was just my way of how do I throw out my energy and vent. And I thought, well, I'm just going to run. And, and so you're just surfing on the internet and seeing how to run. There's down the road, probably 5 miles, was a race called Firewater Ultra. And I'm like, well, they got a 50K, 100K, and a 100 miler. I'm like, well, I probably can't do the 50K because I've already done. I didn't want to do the 50K. Because I'd already run 26 miles. And I thought, 4 more miles, 5 more miles. I thought that's not really epic. And we like epic. And I knew nothing about the 100 miler. And so I thought, well, I'll just do a 100K straight out of the books. Hadn't run, and that gap between the marathon and there, however many years that is and everything, I hadn't run a bit and everything. And I just started kind of messaging the race directors, which turned out to be Tony and Kathy, and turned out to be some of our greatest friends at this point in life. Tony would just kind of throw me a little bit of information back, because I'd be like, hey, what's the food like? Should I change shoes? And I took it all in. And of course, I had shoes in a drop bag, 20 miles in. That's how much I didn't know. I didn't know anything about gels. I didn't know anything about gear, but I just thought, I'm going to do this. Why not? I was like, it's 5 minutes from where I was working at. I said, if it doesn't go right, it's 20 minutes from the house, I can get picked up. And I've done it, I would say by myself. But I said I just didn't know anybody that I could convince to go out there and pace me, because I guess our world was a lot smaller then, and we didn't know anything about asking your buddy to pace you or bringing you food or anything like that. And and you talk to somebody that's not a runner, and they like, hey, you want to go run 100K? And they're just like, nah, that's crazy. So I went and done it. Finished 16 hours is something like that, and was kind of just got that little hook in me, like, well, this is pretty neat. That was a whole fluctuation of emotions and everything. But I will say, if we check dates and whatnot, I don't think I ran another distance like that for about a year. I think I stayed out of it for a while. And then somewhere in the mixture of all that, I think that's where me and David's daughters, we're in school together. They're young, first, second, third grade, something like that. And then me and David just kind of just clicked and matched up. And it was just like we fed off each other. I kind of be like, hey, he had some stuff going on, and I was like, let's go run, So we would run, and then we'd find this little tough race. And at this point, David Compton was not a runner at all. Like, if you can believe that, it was like, that was the honest truth. Like, I would get ahead of David, and I was, looking back now, I'm like, man, I said, we really have come a long way. And, but I don't want to say that I've credited David for running, because I think he would have found it one way or the other, because it's in him. But, it's just what I was going through and where I was at in life. And for some reason, those shoes fit him too. And we just kind of went with it, and it worked for us. And then we just kept running. And I think I run 100 miler first and got you to come out there. But for David to jump in there, it was just like, it was almost natural for him to run. He would come pace me he'd come pace me the last 50 miles of Georgia Jewel, and who does that? Like, nobody wants to come run 50 miles, period, let alone pace somebody that you don't get anything from, and so forth. But that's kind of how, and then from there, he just would talk to me about, he had these ideas and goals, and I just love him for that, because I'm the worrisome dude that kind of sits back and is very hesitant about doing anything. And I think, what if it don't work, or what if it don't pan out the way we want it to? And I worry about a lot. But like I said, David was kind of the left shoe to my right, that he said, we can do this, and everything. And he actually talked me into East Coast Adventures. I mean, I don't know how many conversations that took, but it was more than a few miles, multiple runs of like, we could do this. And it worked. And that's kind of how I got into running. I guess it was always there, and you just don't know that you need something or how to, but when it found me, I just latched onto it. And like I said, it's not always my best friend at any given point. I don't always have great runs. I don't always, if never podium, but like I said, I just love running. And for some reason, it's still just, I will say this, it still bites me in the butt sometimes because I'm still that guy that just wants to be outside. And like I said, I don't know everything there is to know about computers. And that kicks me in the butt sometimes at my job. But I sit there and think, man, look at everything we have accomplished. Don't be afraid to take a chance and learn stuff. And like I said, that's how I got into running. I mean, in a short story, I didn't have some epic track team. We didn't have track or cross country when I was a kid. It's just, you have small schools and soccer was it. And even at that, soccer with practice was for 1 hour Tuesday and Thursdays, and you get a 1 hour game on Saturday. It was just in me to want to be outside and run and play outside. So that's kind of me in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mike is not kidding when he says I was not a runner. Mike's first big race we talked about, Mike was like, let's do a trail race. You all know me well enough to know that I'm going to find a trail race if someone says that. So I found the Xterra half marathon.
Yep, I'm up there. Yep.
And I told Mike, I was like, let's do this. Needless to say, guys, the most I had ran was with Mike or by myself was maybe 3 miles, maybe 5 at the most. We weren't running much. When I first met Mike, I was running 1 mile loops around my house. 1 mile.
Mm-hmm.
That was my longest distance. Mike beat me by an hour in this half marathon. It took me 3 hours to finish that race. 3 hours. I fell apart, didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to keep up with Mike. I had no idea. So Mike helped me find running much quicker than I would have found it because I had already started running, but I was only running just little bits around my subdivision. When me and Mike got together, we took it to a whole new level, and we found Xterra. Then I'll never forget. This is one of my favorite stories of Mike Taylor. I sign up for the Secret City half marathon because that's I'm to that point half marathons. Mike Taylor signs up for Firewater 100K, which he just said he signed up for a race. Was it the 100K?
It was 100K, yes.
100K. And I remember Mike because it was the same day as the Secret City half marathon. And I finished this race. I finished the half marathon, and I'm texting Mike all day, asking how he's doing. And Mike had no clue what was this race even really was. He showed up to run, and he ran until he couldn't run, and then he just walked the rest of this race. And it was I was texting him in the middle of the night, and he was still going. And I think he quit running about 30 times in that race.
Yeah, that's where I showed up for Firewater. That's when it used to start at the bridge at Coy. And that's where I met Melinda. That's where I met Cindy. A lot of the regulars that are always out there that you just see at every single event or every month or so, you'll see them somewhere. And I was actually got the whole timing wrong. I showed up and I thought I had an hour and a half ahead of time, and I was a whole hour late. And so when I got there, I had 20 or 30 minutes to prep, and I was like, what have I got myself into? I just didn't know. You just didn't know anything. And I think that sometimes is where I was at, that was the glory in it. Not that I want to be proud of myself, but it's you just don't know. And I guess there's too many answers out there now where people give you so many answers, and sometimes you just have to take that chance and just say, I'm going to do it. I wasn't a bit concerned about, in my mind, I didn't even know what DNF meant. I didn't even know what DNS started. I didn't know what ultrasonic was. I didn't know what anything was. I just wanted a challenge in my life, and that fit the criteria right there. And I thought, what's going to happen if I don't make it? No big deal. And I think that was the fun in it, is just not having any worry about what's going to happen. I wasn't worried about a podium. I wasn't worried about a PR. I wasn't worried about, how I felt. Yeah, I just wanted that challenge.
And your longest race to this point was the half.
Was the full marathon.
So Mike went from a full marathon to a 62-mile 100K.
Just doubled it plus a little.
But he did it. He did it. And then he wanted more, and he ended up doing Georgia Jewel. And then that was my longest run ever. I paced him for 50 miles.
Yeah. And that's a tough race. I mean, I know we've talked about that numerous times on the podcast, you guys have. And it was just one of those things. Once again, I wanted to do I wanted a 100-miler. For some reason, I thought that's not something I needed somebody else to look at me and say, that guy's done 100 milers. This was all internal. Like, I wonder, I've done 100K. Can you do a 100-miler? I thought, well, there's Georgia Jewel. Never heard of it before, but hey, it's an hour and a half from the house. Why not? What have I got to lose and everything? True fashion, I don't ever look up any data on any race. I'm still the world's worst about that. I can show up on race day. I'm either got the race time wrong, or where the aid stations are, or what the course description is. I don't put much thought into it and everything. That's the point I'm at in life, where I'm just like, whatever it is, it's there. It's not going to change. And so, true form and fashion, I show up and I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I get down there to 50 to the figure eights, and I thought, well, I'm in trouble, And David finds his way down there. David and Dad get down there, and David paces. You do the figure eights with me out there. Both. I think I done the first one.
You had to do it up to 50.
Yeah.
Then I was able to do the last.
You was able to do, and so forth. But like I said, that was another learning curve. But when I got done with it, I think I maxed it out at 32 and a half hours. But as long as you were making forward progress, they were phenomenal about letting you just carry on, and I think I was 20 or 30 minutes past the technical cutoff. But like I said, they were all still there. But man, what a tough race.
Well, and I want you to share the story of your this is
I know where this is going.
This is where we learned about chafing. So I picked Mike up at 50. We make it to about 80 before I realize Mike is starting to walk funny, and he's taking his headband off, and he keeps messing with himself. And I was like, are you okay? And Mike's like, man, I'm shaped so bad. I can't even put my legs together. He's like, it's so bad.
It was bad.
So we've had Jason Green on here talking about the Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
Now that was funny.
That's weird. That's some stuff right there.
But Mike Taylor, tell them what you did.
So Ziploc bag would have been phenomenal if I had that idea. Of course, and like I said, going into this, no real, I had my drop bags lined out and everything, but you always just think, okay, I'm going to put another pair of socks or another pair of shoes. You just kind of, when you're young, you go through the basics of like, you don't overthink because you don't have any knowledge to think about anything at all, which is kind of great. You don't worry about anything. I learned bad hard about lubrication at that given point. I think back then, squirrel's nut butter might have been something that I carried, maybe not, or just didn't. I don't think I did. I honestly don't, because it was bad. It was beyond bad. I was like, I don't even think my wife knows how bad it was, but it was bad. And I would take like my whole shirt. I had my extra shirt, and I would just take it off, and I would just shove it down there and just straddle it and just cover my everything, and and just try to walk. And like I said, it was bad. It took weeks for me to get back to normal, and I'm not a bit embarrassed to say it and everything, but like I said, it was just not. If you don't know about lube, you will learn real quick.
How was that shower?
No, that was bad. That was bad for weeks. I'm telling you, Matt. It's just it just things you just don't know.
You know what I always envisioned you doing with the headband? You ever seen a girl when they get out of the shower, they wrap their head?
Yeah.
That towel.
So that was like one of those. I think it was one of those Spartan ones or one of those junk ones or something like that I used to have, and I think I still have it. And you just be like, well, I'm going to wrap everything up here, so do the best I can, And
well, you finished it.
Nonetheless, you learn a lot about lubrication and everything in a race.
Well, I'll say neither one of us looked good in that race when we finished. I looked so bad. They gave me a buckle.
They did. When he sat down, they gave him a buckle.
Jenny Baker still remembers this because when I finished Georgia Jewel, and I actually went back and did the 100-miler, we laughed about it. She recorded a thing on Facebook with me because she gave me a belt buckle with mine. And I was like, oh, I don't need this. She's like, you earned it. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that, but I didn't earn it. She's like, oh, you did. And she walks away, and then I'm just sitting there with Mike, and Mike's looking at me like, he's like, did she get it? He's like, she gave you a belt buckle. He's like, that's cool. I was like, yeah. I don't really deserve the belt buckle. Like 20 minutes later, he comes back. She's like, you didn't run the 100-miler? I'm like, no. She's like, I'm going to have to get the belt buckle back. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, I feel so bad. Here, since I did that, here's a hat. Here's Wick socks. Here's a shirt. You remember, she gave me all kinds of stuff. I was like, Jenny, you don't have to do that. She's like, oh, no, I feel bad. I was like, it's fine. I didn't earn any of this. Like, I came and paced Mike.
50 miles worth.
We loaded up in the car, and Ariana, my daughter.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't think me and David saw the end of the parking lot is how bad off we were when we passed out. All we know is we pulled back into Madisonville. That's it. That's the only thing I remember. Like I said, and fortunately, I don't even know how I guess family would have brought her down, but she drove us home that day.
We stunk so bad.
Oh, we maxed it out. And like I said, at one point I got so mad there at the Rock Garden. And I remember this. I remember getting so mad there that I told David, I was like, look, they don't know who I am. Just take my effing bib and go finish this race.
He did. He stopped mid-race. Just turned around and started screaming at me. He's like, I don't give a about this. Take my bib and finish this race. And I said, Mike, I can't do that. They're going to know. Your family's waiting on you. Not you. And he's like, I don't give a damn. Take my bib.
You just never think the Rock Garden can go along that far. And you're just at the end of your wits. And I was chasing cutoffs, and it was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, but you just looking back about the things you take in and you go with it at a given time, and you're living it up. So,
well, and you've done several 100-milers though. You did Georgia Jewel. The next one I paced you at, which was your next 100, I believe, was Yeti 100.
Was Yeti, yeah. Absolutely, and everything. So that was back when and I don't know what they do now because I hadn't even tried to enter or anything like that. Used to, you had lottery.
Yeah, no lottery.
No lottery now. So I had to sit there and actually wait for the results and so forth like that to see if I got in. And that was just me like, hey, random. Hey, I think I'm going to go run this one. This is a pretty cool, popular race and everything. I didn't know Jason. Didn't know anything about it other than, hey, it's, going to be this crushed gravel and, and should be pretty straightforward. Phenomenal event. Had a great time. Didn't really ever, I remember meeting Jason up there, and he talked at the top of White Top. And other than that, I remember the story on that was, on the bus or the van ride up, they're like, don't run fast downhill, and everything. And of course, what happens is we run fast downhill. It's what we do. And that was the same time Dad come out there and paced me, or didn't pace me, but aided me the entire day. My dad aided me a lot of my events. Anywhere he could get to, he has been faithful in following me around.
Yeah.
And even David at the given point, we would just piggyback back and forth, like, hey, I got this race, you got that race, and so forth. It was just our thing at the time.
It was just three of us.
Yeah.
Me, Mike, and James.
And we went to some gnarly places, when you done Georgia Jewel or Georgia Death Race,
yeah.
That was some crazy driving around and so forth like that. But it's just what we done at the given time. But yeah, Yeti was a phenomenal event. Had a pretty decent race up until about 50. And then I had just went, just spent out, on the way back from Damascus. And just, got too hot. And then I think when David come in, he can probably tell it better, but I know I was laying on the ground again, dead. I was. But he brought me back to life. He did for the next 16, 17 miles straight uphill. He made me pop salt tabs and whatever else, and he brought me back to life, got me to the top and said, okay, that's far, because he had to get back home. And, that was kind of friend David is he drove 2 or 3 hours to run 17 to 20 miles, get me back alive, and then turn around and drive right back home. That was where our relationship, was with running, with ultra running. It was like, whatever you need, I can do, and everything. He drove further than he run, and that was just, I always just still stands out to me, and then so forth like that, because I think it's just, sometimes it's tough to get a pacer, and we were just at a given point, like, whatever I can do for you. We just looked at it as the next challenge. We didn't think nothing of it. So.
It was also before the kids were in high school.
It's true. Before we had
we'll get back to that.
Before we had practice or an event every other day to some point.
But that's right. I mean, we were almost like a traveling trio. Like every race, it was, if Mike was running, it was me and James, Drew, and you. If I was running, it was you and James, Drew, and me. Like it was just back and forth. I mean, your dad crewed us in that crazy ass 100K we decided to do ourselves.
Gone Loco. We're probably the only two people known at this given point to ever do 100K out there.
We did, and it's still my coolest. It's my favorite medal. It's a damn Bigfoot's. It's Bigfoot's foot squashed together between two pieces of wood.
What was the name of that race? The Great Endurance Challenge or something?
Great Endurance Challenge. It was during COVID.
Yeah.
Was it Escape?
The Great
Escape.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
it was actually the coolest medal ever. Like I said,
I didn't run that far.
Would you come out there and run with us? So at the end,
we should do it maybe like a 10-year thing at Gone Loco. We should just offer 100K one time.
Yeah, I mean, talk about just your randomness of that was our conversations. Like, hey, you want to go run 100K out there? And it's only me and David. That's what we were at. Like, that's
that was
crazy we were.
The extension.
Yeah,
I remember.
So was it 4 miles? 4 miles back and forth. I got out there at like 4:00. You overslept, and you overslept. But then you caught back up. You just started somewhere,
on the other end.
Yeah, that's right. Because we put the car. You had the Honda. We just put that little ice bag out there. And 100K. We just kept running all day long until we got 100K.
That's how dumb we were, guys. We just decided we'd do it. No one signed up for our 100K virtual race. Everybody signed up for the smaller distances. But me and Mike were like, nope, screw it.
Yeah.
We're going to the Eureka Trail. We're going to run 100K on this 4 mile out.
Yeah, so if anybody ever complains about it, I just kind of look at them like, you don't have a clue. We run 4 miles and 100.
But James Taylor crewed us out of his truck the whole time. And then this is where we had met Matt a few times, and Matt actually drove out and ran, 10, 15 miles with us.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
There towards the end. And we were still running.
You were still running.
There was no walking. We were trying to get that shit done.
Yeah.
We were.
Man. Different.
It was fun, though. It was fun. So we did and that kind of like Yeti and Pistol. I think Pistol 50 miler was probably the most miserable race me and you had ever
done. We had done that, and that was cold. And I think that might have been some of the time where we just kind of got introduced to Greenway, for lack of better words. And we were not. Yeah, we just weren't like huge Greenway lovers by no means. We were always about the waterfalls. Even Loco was. It of course wasn't called Loco at that given point. Just that Great Endurance was a deep step for us to be on something that flat.
There it is, the Great Escape.
Great Escape. But yeah, Pistol was just detrimentally cold, and nighttime.
2 people.
What did we do? We went and drank some beers right before that race, I think, too.
Beer and pizza.
I don't know what we were thinking, but that was just what we did. That didn't work out for me either.
St. Patrick's Day.
Was that what it was? It's something?
Yeah. Wasn't it?
I don't know.
But
maybe it wasn't St. Patrick's Day.
It's cold. It's cold on that Greenway at nighttime.
Yeah, that was when it used to be at the school, too.
Yeah.
So you could get in there, and they had full food.
Mike threw up the first 10 miles.
Yeah. Right off the bat.
All that pizza.
On the far side going up that hill, I threw up. It used to go to the right, around to the right first and everything and look back, but then that's where I threw up at.
But I think right after that race is when we really started talking about East Coast fishing.
Yeah, because before that it wasn't a thing. It wasn't even, I don't think it, and like I said, I don't really know what was in your head to create it, but it was just one of those things like, I don't know if I've ever asked you that, like what created the East Coast, like in your head, what was your desire? Because it took me a while, just because I'm like, I didn't want people to see us, and I didn't want to fail. because not that I was worried about my name, but I just didn't want to we just knew so many people. And I thought, can we do this? We didn't have any equipment. Honest to goodness, we didn't have nothing. We had no trailers. We didn't own anything when we put on the first event. A couple of ice coolers, maybe that's about it. And I don't know. We look at us now, but yeah.
It was just a thought, man. I was just, we had ran all these races together, met so many cool people, and seen so many people do amazing things, and I was like, I think we can do it. I think we can give people that opportunity here because no one has that opportunity here.
Yep.
There's races and, there is a few small ultras around here at that time.
Yeah.
Everything was a couple hours away.
It was a smaller world for sure and everything. And I said, that's to no discredit to any race director that puts on anything. It's just, I guess I just didn't want to be another event. And you had visions that I couldn't imagine yet about how we could take this to what we have is next level, of blessing people more or less, there's times that I think every one of us gets messages or something like that, like, hey, I can't believe you done that for me, or I can't believe that was offered for me, or I can't believe this team done that for me or showed up for me in that way. And in the stuff I see now, I never envisioned that we could affect this many people positively, and I don't want to say in today's world, but it's a blessing in me, to be able to bless people, in a positive way. I know sometimes we live for the weekends, but man, we're East Coast Adventures, we really, it's not something that we just say. We really believe that there's some way we can bless somebody at a race. There really is. And gain nothing from it, other than just be that blessing. There's no return to it that we look for.
No, every bit of the money that's been generated from East Coast Adventures goes either donated or
right
back into
and on that, too, I'm also saying that, I don't think we ever put ourselves out there like, oh, they're gonna go on there online and say East Coast Adventures done this for me. We never get that. We never look for that.
Yep.
If nothing else, we look to show up and support other race directors in other ways. How can we help them?
Yep.
Because like I said, they're trying to do the same thing. Maybe they don't get the same platform or the same scale or, so forth like that. But like I said, they can still be a blessing to the runners.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I can say that I'm proud of with East Coast Adventures, the memories and all that is great, but it has actually been able to give someone the gift to come run when they didn't have it. Like we get messages for people that say they can't afford to come run.
Yep.
And we just donate an entry to them.
Yeah.
And that to me,
that gives me chills just thinking about when we get to do that. Like that just means
do that. And I think that is one of the, there's nothing ever said. There's, we don't want you to talk about it.
Nope.
That is just between us. And, we'll always be able to do that, to help people that are in need. And man, that's worth more than $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Period. We get to do that. We get to help that. And, and we continue to do that. And I think that opportunity, man, when people get that opportunity, it makes it even more special to them. And then, you take that on top of like someone else that finishes this race. I mean, hell, look at Tyson.
Yeah.
We got to be there for Tyson in his very first ultra. And dude, that was so cool. Like that stuff is priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
agree with that.
It might have took me a year to talk you into it, Mike, but we're there.
We're there. Like I said, but
unfortunately, by the time I talked him into it, it's when COVID hit.
Yeah. So we're running around crazy, getting shut down with this and that, trying to learn, trying to figure out permits. I don't even know if we had insurance. Who knows? We were piggybacking off everybody at that given point. So, but, we duked it out. We made it work. We learned, what sometimes we epically fail. We can have an event and so forth like that. If it's a learning curve for us, we'll just take notes and just say, okay, that didn't work next time. And we go. It's all good.
Yeah, we started this race, like East Coast Adventures, the very first race. We started it with the little bit of cash we both had, we scraped together to do. We didn't even have a trailer or nothing. We just found all the equipment and started it.
Made medals and everything as usual. Yeah.
Well, I ran with the guy in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he made all of our medals for the first 2 years out of wood.
Mm-hmm.
He made everything, and that helped us. But me and Mike were literally like we started it, and we paid for the medals and the shirts as we took signups. Like that's how we had to do it. And we, and now look at us. It's just amazing. But it was a little nerve wracking in the beginning. And I remember me and Mike, man, we were texting every day for hours back and forth when we were first starting to start this thing, because it was like, I mean, imagine what we do now.
Yeah.
But just me and Mike and having no damn clue what to do. And it was just like we were texting back and forth, trying to get permits, trying to get ultra sign up set up, trying to get all this stuff. And it was people were asking us questions, and we were just like, it was just back and forth the whole time. And like all we would do is just like, at the end of the day, we'd be like, we got it.
Yeah. And you take like, we started out with what we had the COVID runs, and then we had Fort Frenzy was probably what our biggest first event, probably. Yeah. But it
got moved too.
Yeah.
It was in April.
Yeah.
When you first put it on.
Yeah.
And then it got canceled.
That's how it ended up in August.
Yep. And you think, you have low numbers, and you sit there and think, man, I put so much work into this. Why are my numbers not? But now you're maxing out. It just, I don't know. The work that you put into work, it'll take care of itself.
Well,
so
yeah, to a point. But how you treat people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where I think we do the best. And that comes in full time.
Yeah.
If you're kind to people and you're good to people and you celebrate people the way that they deserve to be celebrated.
But that's a lot of credit to you teaching us that and everything and so forth, and slowing us down, because I as being the worrier, I'm like, okay, are we going to have enough money for this, or how are we going to do that and everything like that? And you're just like, it'll take care of itself. We'll get there, and everything. And like I said, I give you full credit for that, of slowing us all down and saying, don't look at that, look at this, and the rest of that'll take care of itself. So
yeah, but it's needed on both ends, because sometimes I don't get into the details.
Yeah, David's like, let's just do this. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, what about this?
And I realize that, guys, that is bad sometimes. Like, I need people to rein me in, and Mike is that person that's always kind of like questioning. And sometimes I get mad, I do. Like, if I...
No, I mean, we do. We have got mad at each other. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And especially if we're in a 24-hour event that we're both working.
Yeah.
We've gotten mad at each other many a time.
Yeah.
And we just don't talk.
That's real.
But, there's extremes on both sides. And Mike is very much the guy that's going to worry about every detail. And I'm the guy that's going to be like, we can do this. Look at this. Here it is. Like, here's this big sparkly thing.
Yep.
We got it. We got this. And, but I will say the one thing that Mike does really well is he gets into the details and does that, and thinks about the things sometimes that, I might miss because I'm more of the big picture guy. But I think that's why it works so well.
It does. And like I said, and that's when, when it started to grow more than what we not necessarily anticipated, and then we met Matt more or less, and Matt just brought so much. I don't know. He fit us too. I don't know how you can have a third shoe on your foot, but Matt's that one. He did. He just bridges this and that, and it was just like, where have we been missing this guy at and everything? And it wasn't because nobody we ever have or part of the team or something like that we ever look at. Oh, look at them. They're finishing first every time. That was never a thing.
I think the biggest thing for me with Matt was that he took ownership.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he was just trying to help. He was really trying to help because he wanted to. Like, he wanted to be a part of it. And you could see that. And,
never had to ask him to do anything.
Yeah, no, and I think he wanted to be a part. I think you wanted to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And, and there was no other ultra stuff around here. And, you'd come out and even ran that first marathon at Melinda's Boston.
Melinda's Boston.
Yeah.
And, it just...
I forgot about that.
It all kind of fell together, but the thing that I think has been the biggest thing for East Coast Adventures has just been the details of everything. You know, like it's your part of the micromanaging, and your part of like the social media piece. Because me and Mike didn't have time for social media at all.
We still don't have time for social media.
Well, you do better at it
Yeah.
than we did, because like, and even now that we have gotten more people and more time, but we just keep growing.
Yep.
And like the podcast, like I do the podcast stuff, you do the social media stuff, Mike does all the planning stuff as far as the permitting and all that goes, and it's just like everybody has their piece now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But in the beginning, I'll never forget this. Mike probably won't forget this either, because this was one of the times I got mad at Mike. It's like the second year at the fort, and Mike was over there cooking. He was just cooking away.
Yeah.
And I turn around and I look at him, and I'm like, Mike. I said, what? I said, put the fucking pencils down. He's like, man, it's got to get done. I said, Mike. We went to the side, and I said, Mike, there was like 4 people sitting there watching you cook. Please, for the love of God, let them help you so that you can come over here and
See, that's a
finish line.
that's
like, you are the face of this company.
Yeah.
I need you out here like cheering people on, and Mike's whole opinion right then, I saw the gears and everything change, and from that point on, Mike Taylor was always like switched to, okay, I think you knew what I was saying.
You did. I did. But it was, my problem was just letting, not it being perfect for that runner.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is something I can handle. I'm not David. David is a cheerleader within himself. I mean, he is just this.
It's DJ on the mic.
Yeah, he is. I mean, but he brings the vibe when you get there. And I'm the quiet guy, like, who wants to sink back. And like I said, I've gotten so much better about talking to people. I really have. But I'm like the dude that wants to just disappear into the corner and be like, okay, I'm here and I love you. But like, you know, I'm not that. I'm not the guy on the mic. I'm not. I'd have no problem getting up there. And one of the greatest things I get to do for East Coast Adventures is pray. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that me and David and Matt started, and everything like that is like, we're going to pray for these guys, because that was important to us. And I'm like, that is one thing that, like, you know, that I love. And I was like, well, I don't mind getting up there in front of them and talking to them. But after that, I'm like, this is David's thing. You know, he can really shine, and he brings the level 10 volume and so forth like that. So to me, it was just not knowing your role, but like I said, it was just me knowing that, hey, I can handle all this other stuff. And I can make sure that that's filled and that's cooked right, and these are where the metals should be at and everything. And David gets to just glow. You know, with me being, to me in my mind, I was supporting him, you know, and not that I was doing anything to discredit East Coast Adventure, but I thought East Coast Adventures is David, you know, and everything. And I need to step back and just, you know, make sure that he can make it shine. And that's what in my mind, that the gears were turning. Now I do know it takes every one of us to be at an event now and to support, and he can't run that energy for 30 plus hours while we're there, because we're getting there at Thursday night and Friday mornings and starting to set up, and by the time Sunday finishers are coming through and so forth like that, we're tired. You're not going to be as bubbly and cheerly. So we've learned the hard way that we've got to sleep. That was a learning curve for every one of us and everything, you know. And like I said, that was because me and David and Matt used to stay up as long as we possibly could. We just thought every one of us needs to be up for that runner, no matter what. If they finish at 2:00 in the morning, they need to, somebody better be there. Yep. You know, we all three need to be there. Yep. And we figured out the hard way, like we cannot carry on this passion and every single one of us be awake for 30-something plus hours. So
yeah. I remember those first few events where you're trying to stay awake at the fort.
Yeah.
No, like we'd all sit down because it gets quiet during the nighttime, and you sit there, then you wake up and everybody there would be asleep. It was.
I mean, we have come such a long way, and we've grown so much. It's so fun. I mean, the team has been, you know, and I credit the team mostly to Matt. Like me and Matt talked about it a couple of times, and Matt just went with it.
Yeah, because when he brought it up, I thought, I don't know about this, man.
Mike was the most turned off by the team.
It's like, how are we? Well, I was just worried that what we had developed was just going to be.
You got to see what I went through with trying to start
out there, and I'm like, how are we going to not control? But I was like, what if they're just not? What if they don't reflect what we have worked so hard for? And then we've got 20 or 30 runners out there that are just freelancing and just everything. I was just going through my head like, we can't control that, and I have to have my finger on something to. I just the way I felt.
So what my vision was to begin for the team part was like every time you went to Knoxville, you always saw Runner's Market, the Long Run, Zen Evo, all those. I'm like, well, they're building this down here. Like, we're not in Knoxville, but when we go to Knoxville, we need to have that presence. And then I kept mentioning, I'm like, hey, we need singlets. Hey, we need some singlets. Hey, we need some singlets.
I remember Matt telling me, like, he was like all for this team, and I just looked at him. I was like, dude, I love it. I was like, but I don't have time for any of that shit. So that's all you. Because I mean, I was like, at that point, it was just me and you.
Yeah.
And you were starting, and it was like I was the guy designing the medals.
You were. I mean, it was constant. It's just.
And it was funny because like it was just between the both of us, and I just looked at Matt and I said, I love it, but I was like, you'll have to do it. Like I don't. Yep. You'll have to figure it out, and he did.
Yeah.
And I helped with what I could, and you helped with what you could.
And the first year was really good. Like it. I mean, even before we had the official team, there was a group of us that were always together, and it really like that. That started, and then the next year when we actually had the official team,
they police themselves really well. If one does something that's not cool, the others are quietly behind the scenes messaging them or messaging us like, hey, you know what, we got something going on here and everything. And I think that's the great thing about the team is that the standards of East Coast Adventures is across the board. And as said, even when the team, it's just, they take care of themselves. The team is the team's rules. Like I said, they're not going to tolerate, it's like, I guess, sometimes at work, you're like, hey, that dude's not cool, and everything, and they're the same way. Like, they'll call you out pretty quick if you're putting something, they do.
We have the best team.
We do.
I'll argue with anybody in the world. We have the best team. And I'm not talking about the best performance team. I don't care about that. We have the best people.
Yeah.
They care. They take care of each other. They take care of us. They take care of other runners.
Yep.
They are the kindest people. And when I see all those posts on social media, when some runner meets an East Coast Adventures runner, they talk about how kind they were, how nice they were. And man, that is exactly what East Coast Adventures is. And that's why we started the whole ECA family thing.
Yeah.
Because we are.
Yeah.
Well, we went down a whole.
Oh boy, we sure did.
Let's back it up and go. I want to mention one thing real quick though. There's a little race in Tennessee called Mid-State Mile, and I would not have discovered Mid-State Mile if it would not have been for Mike Taylor messaging Becky Jones about this little race. Mike's the one that actually found this race, and we both signed up for it, not knowing what the hell we were getting into.
So what got canceled for us and everything? Our stuff got canceled, right?
Everything got canceled.
Everything was canceled. All of our experiences got canceled.
Was it? I don't know. I mean, I can't remember. It was Three Sisters or
something like that. And I'm just like, how the piss is she gets put a race on? I was like, this is bullcrap,
Delayed, right?
Yeah.
Or something. Maybe it wasn't Three Sisters. Maybe something else. I don't remember.
I still have our messages between, and I'm sitting there like, I just don't understand this. She, and Becca True Form's like, I found a loophole. And I'm like, damn, I kind of like this chick. She's figured it out and everything and so forth like that. She said, we're having a wedding. And I was like, I just want to run, and so forth like that. And I said,
you know whose wedding it was? Keith's.
Really? Yeah, I don't think I ever,
I found that out the last time when I saw John Harden. It was Keith.
I think she gave me a free entry, and I'm like, hey, I got one more buddy to show up to run and everything. She's like, yeah, bring them and everything like that, and I said, so we end up at Mid-State Mile. And I know we've had this story on there before. Once again, True Form fashion. Race data might have been on the ultra sign up page. Who cares? Who reads that stuff? Everything. I was like, 1 mile. Me and David, we had plans to run somewhere. It got canceled. I'm like, well, let's just run 100 miles. I thought it's 1 mile at a time. Why can't we run 100 miles this weekend? That should be easy enough for us. And, well, who was over there? Doug
Oh my gosh.
Doug was like, "You guys haven't been out on the course, have you?"
It was such a funny conversation. Doug is sitting right behind us, and Doug said, we introduced ourselves, and Doug's like, "What's y'all's goal today?" Me and Mike did not hesitate. 100 miles. He said, Doug smiled, and he looked at us, and he said, "Have you been on the course?" And me and Mike's like, "No, it's a 1 mile loop." He's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yep. Okay."
Oh man.
Okay. We did one lap.
Yeah, it was Father's Day weekend. Yeah.
Me and Mike got to the finish line, and we saw Doug, and we said, "You're right. We are not doing 100."
We're getting on the phone with our kids like, "We'll be home tomorrow. Don't worry." Because we weren't going to be home for Father's Day. And it's like, "We'll be home tomorrow. Don't worry." So things have changed.
But I thought that was really cool. I mean, Mike, you're really the reason that we met Becca and John.
But that was the stuff we would get into, though. We would just randomly be like so ambitious or so willing to take on any challenge that we just go.
Yeah.
Oh, tell them about the place we stayed in and everything on that. That's another Mike and David adventure. I mean, we've got a see-through bathroom door.
Dude, Mike books his
Airbnb. It's an Airbnb.
We go in there, and it's obviously an Asian person that owns this, an Asian lady. And because it's decorated.
Yeah.
And we walk in there, though, and Mike goes to the bathroom. Or no, I went to the bathroom. Was it me or you? Who knows?
I don't remember.
But anyway, one of us walked out and said, "Dude, have you been to the bathroom?" And the other person was in the kitchen. I remember who it was at this point. And I was like, "No." And he's like, "The door's glass." And the toilet was right in front of the door.
Yeah.
So there was no privacy. And it was just me and Mike. And it's a one bedroom, like.
And you had to walk by the bathroom to get to the bedroom or living room or anything.
Yeah, so there was like a sleeper in the living room and a bedroom, but the bathroom was right in the middle with a glass door. So the rule was if someone was in the bathroom, the other person stayed in the kitchen.
Because you're thinking like maybe it's like Wonderworks or whatever that place is, where it smokes over or something when you shut it. No, it was none of that shit like that. It was just full-fledged glass. And
you could see everything in there.
I don't know what I missed in the description on this, but yeah, we got a glass bathroom door.
One of them kinky Airbnbs.
But now I'd probably just take a dump right in front and not care. After no business, and what I saw this past weekend, I was like, "There's no shame in it." Just
Well, Mike, we have talked about a lot of these over the course of the 100 episodes, just roughly, like talking about Ball State and others.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about the track races and stuff on here, and the one thing we didn't talk about though. Yeah, Stinger.
I know. I'm just saying track race.
The one thing that you did back in December, real quick, we'll touch on this one for a minute, but you went and did the 50-miler in Alabama at the end of last year. You did the Run Undead, and you won it. And what did you think about that race? I know that race director; he's a really good guy. What did you think about that race and his venue?
I went down there on I ended up with an off day or something like that, or off weekend. And some of my race signups are like that. It'll be one of those last minute things. Like even if something's sold out, I'm like, well, maybe somebody's not going to show up, and I'll just message. And I think they were like, "Yeah, come on." And so I signed up, drove down a couple hours. That given point, even Tasha and Daniel Grant were like, "Hey, we've already got a room." Corey and Teresa were running. They were doing Run Aid for everybody. Mm-hmm. April was going to be running her own, trying to get a hundo. She was running 24-hour. Tasha was running 24-hour. Who else am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody. David Kyle. David Kyle was running everything. But anyways, I went down there, and Tasha and Daniel let me stay in their room. And next morning, I just thought, I just want to run. That was one of my fine things of just like, hey, I haven't really put the work in, but I've been solid, and so forth like that. And that was one of those ones where it's not a last man. It's a time thing, 6, 12, and 24, something like that. So whatever mileage you get, it's what you got. And went into it, had a solid day all day long, just completing my loops. Corey would have my aid ready for me. I had decided, kind of quick in, quick out. My goal was 2 minutes or less at the aid station every single loop. I don't remember by this point if it was 4 or 5 mile loop, but it was a couple miles, and just had a really good day. I was in probably fourth or fifth for most of the day. And then I finally just said, well, I'm not going to place really. It's no big deal. But you kind of go into it, even though we say you don't want to. I think you always have that desire to be solid as a runner. As you do this longer, you kind of want to gauge yourself out. And ended up for that particular event, just later into it, probably 8 or 9 hours into it, just quit looking at the board and just said, I'm just going to run. I don't think my times, I could go back and look, I don't think they got quicker by no means or anything like that, but I just tried to stay solid and thought I can just get through 12 hours and, and go with that. That was what my goal was, just to finish the 12 hours. Because we put on these events, but we never get to run them ourselves and everything like that. We put on Fort Frenzy, dirt circuit, and so forth. And we get to see what people look like, when they go out too quick or when they don't nutrition right, et cetera, and so forth, and then try to piece it back together. And I've been in that same boat, but I wanted to really work on nutrition and so forth like that. I had it all lined out, what I was going to eat and drink every hour, and it worked. And somehow I ended up winning the 12-hour male. I don't remember if they done overall female or male, or if it's just one first overall. Yeah. And it just worked out. And I was really surprised because it wasn't something that I expected, nor it wasn't a goal. It was just one of those ones, like I said, on a whim, where I ended up getting off and being able to just go down there and run it. Great event. They put on a party. When they say it's a run undead party, it literally is, and everything like that. They had music. I mean, it was New Year's Eve party, right? Yeah. Yeah, it was actually, because they had a ball drop there and everything. You've run a race there at that same park, State Park, right? That was where it was a different part of the park, Oak Mountain. Yeah, it's totally different, but yeah, he run a bad part of it. But yeah, I mean, great event. I definitely would recommend them to anybody as far as that goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's been a big year for you, to be honest, because it's been a long time since you've done a 100-miler, period.
Yes.
But you did 200-milers this year. So at the beginning of the year, you did Pistol 100.
Woo-woo.
And that went pretty well. I mean, you actually had a pretty good day out there.
Yeah, did and everything. I think that was I'll be truthful here. That was one by accident that I had to sign up for, because we had volunteered and everything, and ended up with volunteering quite enough to get a race credit and everything. And I already swore off running on Greenway. I really had. Brian, Shelley, Gordon, they can put on a great event, but I was still like, it's Greenway. I'm not doing it. I already had bad memories from back in the day with Will with the 50-miler and everything on the Greenway. And I was like, I just don't want no part of it. I love volunteering, but I still want no part of it. And then it's like, well, great, now I got a race credit. And Matt had a race credit. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And he's like, we got to run,
And so said, 100-miler. I mean, we got the credit. We're using it for a 100-miler.
And I had to my opinion, I thought I had one of a decent race. I think top 15 possibly, or something like that.
11th overall.
11th overall. And I feel like, I was like, man, if I had pieced just a little bit together, I could have probably placed 7, 8, 9. I don't think I would have definitely, moved up much more than that. But like I said, it was definitely a more fun race to piece some knowledge together, from years past and everything. And like I said, that was me going back to the hundo days, and those are not easy. Like I said, there's a reason there's a difference between a 100K and a 100-miler, and it's not. I never want anybody on our team or somebody to think they need a 100-miler to be considered an ultra runner, because that is a whole nother level of I want this, because and we'll get into this. I said it is so big of a difference on there and everything. I mean, it's a whole nother race after that 100K that things can and will go wrong.
I say this all the time. The last 20 miles of a 100-mile race, it's just different.
Yeah.
It just hits different. Yeah. It's different.
It is.
And eventually, you get used to it.
Yeah.
But the first few, those last 20 miles, it is mentally just a much different race. It really is.
You can run the first 20 miles of anything and think, well, this isn't too bad. And that last 20 is like time stops, and you just start microing every wrong thing for some reason, and you can't. It's hard to compartmentalize it and just say, I need to ignore that. I mean, it's there. It's there every step, every move. You think, foot's still hurting. Hey, guess what? Foot's still hurting. 3 more steps, foot's still hurting. You know, like, well, what am I going to do? I guess you just keep running. So,
well, speaking of that, let's just go ahead and rip this Band-Aid off.
Oh, boy.
We're all about no business now. So, no business was another race that we both signed up for this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get to do it this year just because of how it worked out with Cali stuff. But you went and prepared, ready. You probably weren't as prepared as you wanted to be, because I know you probably missed some training runs with starting your new career and all that. And you didn't get to train the way you wanted to. But ultimately, you did inspire a lot of people with this run. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you planned on that. But I've had at least 6 people that I know of that I've heard say, I'm so impressed with Mike Taylor, or Mike Taylor inspired me, or man, I have a whole new respect for Mike Taylor. And that's really cool, because I don't think you ever realized that. And one of the things we didn't really discuss on here, because it's not on your ultra sign up, and this is going back to me and you, and this is where, you know, a story that we've shared at some point, I think, along the way, because I think we talked about Casey George and we talked about it on his podcast, but me and Mike did Island 100. And Mike lost his mojo. That's the best way to say it.
That's it.
Mike lost his mojo right before we got to mile 50. We're out there. It's like Mario. The sun is trying to kill us. There is no shade. That some bitch is chasing us down. And Mike, I look over at Mike, and Mike looks like a white T-shirt. Like, he is as pale as he can be. And he just said, dude, go on without me. I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know. I'll just go on without me. I know you can run. Just keep going. So I did. And you know, me and Mike talked for a minute. We made the first 40 miles together. And I ran on up the hill, and I never saw Mike again. And Mike quit. And Mike quit, and Mike has had that on his shoulder, that chip on his shoulder, since that day that he quit. I have heard him talk about it.
Yep.
I've seen it on his face. To this day, it still upsets him, and I expect 100% for Mike Taylor to go back to Zion one day and finish this race. But I think that chip on your shoulder is also what probably jumped in your head at no business this year when you about quit. And I don't know if that's the case or not, but I just want to say 100% that if you ever had that doubt in your mind from Zion that you couldn't finish, or that you couldn't mentally get through it, you proved to everybody at no business that you can. And you should have proved to yourself, dude, because you did. Everyone expected you at that point to not finish this race. You even said yourself, from what I understand, you weren't going back out.
I wasn't.
But somehow Mike woke up from a small nap and just decided that it was time for him to go back out. Now, Mike, I'm framing this all up because I want you to tell the story of how you started No Business and where we get to this point at. I want you to tell that story of like how the day started, and you get to this point. But then I want you to tell us, like, at that point, what went through your head. So first off, tell us how the race went. We got all the way to this point where I think it was Duncan Hollow where you kind of
it was and everything.
You kind of fell apart.
So leading into that, as you said, I did change careers a couple of months ago, and I thought, well, that's not going to be a big. It was big. I'd been at my previous job for 24 years. I was really solid in my day in and day out. There was no worries. And I decided, hey, I had an opportunity to change career and better myself. And, after many, many sleepless nights, I made that decision to do that. Well, in the midst of that, I thought everything would be running smoother with my sleep and my not necessarily my schedule, but how I felt about how things were going and so forth. Because like I said, now I needed to be in management and implement new things and so forth like that. And it was really just a stressful time for me. So I wasn't hitting my runs. my nutrition was pretty point on and so forth like that. I even know that sometimes when you feel like you're letting your coach down, and I felt like I was letting Mary down, but she knew she was understanding of it and everything. Mary, she gives so much grace. It's unreal, and she'll remind you to give yourself grace. And I was giving myself grace, but I still wasn't happy with where my training was leading me up to this. And, but we got through it, and I would get my runs in. But going into it, I wasn't happy with where I was at. But like I said, race day start, once again, prior to getting up there, I kind of thought I was going to be by myself. I didn't know we had so many ECA people was going to be there. Thought Tosh and Daniel were going to be at an aid station. Chris and Micah were going to be in an aid station. And that was kind of it. I was just going to kind of, as I said before, just fade into that little corner of the background. I was going to set my tent up, on the car and just do my thing that day. I had no goal, no ambition. I told everybody, I said, I'm going to finish this race is my only goal. I said, and I even said to Mary like 2 or 3 days before, I don't know if it's going to take me 23 hours or 26 hours. That was where my mindset is on time frame. Like, it's 100-miler. It can't take too terribly long. I mean, I've been here before. I've done this multiple times. Typically, 24 or less is great. But, I mean, we can go 30 and that be okay. I mean, I'm somewhere in that window and everything. Didn't read any data on anything. Mary just said it's a runnable course, but it's not. Don't run where you should be walking. And I thought, okay. Get there, and there's more ECA people than I realized. We're having a good time. I didn't realize there was going to be so many of us kind of out there and so forth like that. But once again, my goal was just to separate myself and not run with anybody as a group from the get-go, because I knew if I'd done that, then I'm letting the conversation and their pace dictate what's going to happen to me. And I've been there before, and it's messed me up. So I'm like, 100 miles is 100 miles. I knew that in my head, like, this is not going to be easy. So I separated myself, pretty early on from Corey and Luis and Daniel, just that way I didn't have to have conversation and do things that I wasn't comfortable yet with as far as pace. So had a good first, what I would consider to be 15 or 20 miles going into it. My nutrition was hitting. I was so blessed that Sam was there, crewing her husband, Brian. And I was not too terribly far behind him, but she had just enough time to stick around. So when I ran into an aid station, she would help guide my food and fill up my water bottles for me. Saw Joey. Joey filled up something for me, I believe. And like I said, so I was having a pretty decent first part of the day. Like I said, I had no goals. I had my navigation point on, and so forth like that. Small conversations with other runners, just because, once again, I didn't know anybody, and I typically tend to just get by myself when I don't know people. Everything went somewhat well. Started puking, around, and I say puked a lot. I said somewhere around 25 to 30, I think, is kind of when it started, but I kind of expected that. That's not anything absolutely uncommon for me to puke in a race. Almost kind of consider it normal, and as we like to consider it, maybe a master reset, where if things aren't going well in the stomach, get them out, start over again, and then recover. I was on gels and a particular hydration that had been working for me somewhat, and everything. Nothing's perfect. And then it worked until it didn't go well and everything. And that was typically, I think, when it really started going downhill was kind of when I hit Blue Heron. I come in up there, checked in, done my loop, talked to Sam and Brian. They filled me up, made sure I had headlamps, waist lamps, everything. They were phenomenal about, Mike, do you need anything? Brian's race had ended a bit early for an injury. Went down the steps. I remember the girl saying, "What's your bib number, 16?" I told her, wait, maybe about another 10 steps, and started puking my guts out again. And I was like, man, we have to start going through the motions here and everything. So I go down the bottom of the hill, joke with Nick for a minute there. He's at this point, him and Misty are both taking pictures, everybody crossing the river there, Blue Heron, and it's cold. It's cold water. They're going back. I mean, coming across the first time, it's not too bad. It feels great and everything. You're in the daylight, but when you cross it at nighttime, I thought, man, this is just cold. And from there, it just kind of really went downhill. I just couldn't stop puking. I tried ginger. I tried nibbling at stuff. I tried a little bit of a gels. Everything that I had in my recovery bag for more or less and everything. And everything that I had in my mind that would tell me what I needed to do to get out of this situation was just not working at all. But we just kept duking it out for a while. I'd get to an aid station, nibble on something, even though I threw it up. I thought, well, sooner or later, it'll just kind of take. Really, the story kind of starts when I get to Duncan. Because probably 10 miles prior to that, I'm like, I'm done. I cannot keep doing this. I've been puking on the hour, every hour. I hadn't drank any water since Blue Heron. Since Sam filled them up for me at Blue Heron, and I could not get any water or any hydration or any food down for the last 30 miles. No matter what I tried. Like I said, I was just going through the motions. I thought, how am I going to finish out the next 35 miles on nothing? And I'm like sitting there thinking, like, what would Mary tell me? And I know she would keep saying, you just got to eat, Mike. You just got to eat. That just kept going through my mind. I'm like, every time I puke, I eat. And so I was like, you just get mad at yourself because, like, you've been here to some extent. And I didn't foresee this happening. I really thought, I'm going to get sick, but it'll be the last 30 miles. At that point, I can recover and I'll just run with no fuel. But I thought, man, how are you going to make it 60-something miles through this from Blue Heron all the way to the finish with no fuel at all? Like, that's not even possible. I would tell myself, there's nobody can do that. You have to have water. It's not possible. Nobody out here, not even me or David or Matt or Mary or anybody can just run with no fuel. Like, you have to eat. You're constantly telling yourself as an ultra runner, 150 to 200 calories an hour is what you need to be taking in. And I'm like, well, maybe if I couldn't get anything at nothing. So when I got to Duncan, and I don't even know what time it was, but it was late. It was cold. Golly bum, it was cold. When I got to Duncan, I was done for. Like, I went straight into there and I told Tasha, I was like, I am done. Go ahead and tell him I'm done. Take me out of this race. I'm done. And so she's like, sit down by the fire, Mike. I think Tasha was the first one to get to me. And what can I get you and everything? And she started going through there, and I'm just giving her the list of everything that I've done. Lindsay comes over there. She starts going through the list. Like, what can we do? Can we try broth? I've tried broth. I've tried crackers. And they're giving me little things of Pepsi. I mean, we're going through the motions, and I just keep being adamant, like, guys, I am done. There's no way I'm coming out of this. There's just not. I wasn't worried about anything I'd prior thought of because I had never really thought of this situation like where I'm going to quit. I had not got to that point in my pre-race, like, what if you get to this point? And I should have realized back at Dirt Circuit that I had answered my own question, but you never knew the question was, what do you do at 2:00 in the morning? And I had no idea that was going to be me answering my own question that I had no idea that I had already asked, a whole month before, about how do you get past that point. And like I said, it just didn't piece together. And everything started going through my head, what are my teammates going to think of me? What's my family going to think of me? I told them I was coming out here. And if you've never run 100, it takes away from your family like nothing else. It's probably, I've heard somebody say before, it's one of the most selfish things you can ever do. And to some extent it is, we need it, but it is selfish when you have to, not eat dinners because you need to go run, or you work all day long and then you need to go run, but it's 9:30 at night and you want to lay down next to your wife or something, and or you want to go to this event, but you need to get that long run in on Saturday before everybody else gets up. I mean, it's running 100 is very tough. And like I said, it's just one of those ones I felt so bad, like I'm going to have to tell them to their face that Dad failed, and that really, but I couldn't get past being sick. But that was just in my head, like, I'm going to have to tell my girls that I failed at this. So I laid there I had a 3-hour window is what I had. But I was already like, how can somebody get me out of here? I asked Tasha if I could sit in her car until it was time, till they shut the aid station down. That's the point I had gotten to at that point. So an hour left. Let me say this.
So did you sleep any while you were there?
When you hear people come through and you hear the conversations, people will come up, and you're constantly moving your head, and so many runners come up and just said, hey, what can I do for him? Hey, does he need anything? And so forth. And, I just, you're like, I've tried this. I've tried that. One runner sat across from me, and it was the story on her is, I give her credit to saving my race, but her name is Stacy Thomas and everything. And it's actually Stacy Taylor Thomas, which was really cool because I'm a Taylor. My sister's name was Stacy, and so it was like this whole I didn't know that till like a day or two later. But she's like, I got a Zofran. You want to try that? And I was like, I've tried everything. Like I said, all I do is puke it up. She's like, you want to just try it? And I'm like, and so she gives it to me. She's like, you just put it on your tongue and it dissolves. And once again, I'm dead. It's an hour and a half into it, and so forth. Like, how am I going to come out of this? And at that point, it wasn't how I'm going to come out of this. It's like, I can't come out of this. And so I thought, I got nothing to lose. It was still just in my pride was hurt more than anything that I didn't do. Zion would go through my brain like, you've been here. This is going to suck when you do this. And I took that Zofran and just kind of dozed back off for about another 15 or 20 minutes. Stamen had even come up and had conversations with me like Mike. He was going through his book of what can I do for you, and I know he's a phenomenal athlete. And he was I think I even got him convinced to the point like he's not going back out. And that's how convincing I was, because that's how much I had convinced myself that I'm not going back out in this race. There's no way I can do 35 miles and run 3 miles an hour at that point. That's not stupid math and everything. I can get out of this. I can be back at my car and it's sleeping warm and everything. And, but she gave me that. And I think after about 15 minutes, I asked Tasha, can I go get in your car, please, and just warm up? And so I went over there and sat down in the car, and she started the car up for me. And I sat there for a few more minutes, and I'm like, what are you doing, Mike? Why are you quitting and everything? I'm like, and Matt went through my head, because Matt years ago at Mid-State Mile had tried to quit in the chair right there inside the tent. Mm-hmm. And I said, no. I was like, and I said, I wasn't trying to be.
Made him famous.
Yeah, I wasn't trying. Yeah, he did make a video.
Made him famous.
And I was like, I wasn't trying to come up with stuff at the given time, but I was like, we're not going to quit right here in the chair. That's not what we do and everything. Yeah, and I'm just sitting there staring at my feet inside Tasha's car, and I'm just like, what are you doing, man? I was like, how are you going to even be a leader or something like that if you're not even willing to go out there and do the only thing that you say? And that was just at least time out, and not purposely time out, but like, if you can't make it, I think your friends would look at you and be like, well, he timed out. But if you quit in a chair and there's more in you, and you will have that regret the next day. I still, as David said, I still think about Zion. It still bugs me, because when I quit, I had to look him in the face probably an hour later when he looked at me, and I'm sitting inside the vehicle, and he looked at me, and I just like, man, he probably thinks I'm just, we drove all the way out here and I just quit, and that just took the life out of me, and still does, that I quit that race. And so going back to it, I didn't get up for anybody other than myself at that given point. Like, nobody knew except the ones there at the aid station. Micah had got back in the car, and Micah got the most abbreviated form out of anybody he's like, what you got going on? I was like, I think I'm going to go run. He's like, all right, man, that sounds like a great idea. And so I got back out. I asked Tasha, I think, for one of those little muffin cakey things or something like that. And I said, I'm just going to go see what happens. And from there, I never expected anything from it. I'm the dude that wants to be hidden in the crowd. I never expected anybody to ever reach out to me. I didn't think anybody had ever really seen me. Nothing was ever going to come of this other than I was just going to finish my race, and that was it. That's the God's honest truth of that. I'm not the inspiring person. I'm not the one pumping everybody up. I'm the guy that just wants to just hide back in the crowd and not be seen. And like I said, I don't think like I've done anything special. I just done what I knew was inside me. And somehow I found it with an hour to spare, and I was able to maintain and finish my race. Puking the rest of the time, I will say, nothing changed. I was able to just nibble. I never took another thing of electrolytes the last 60 miles. That's kind of normal for some people. Some people only do water. but I was only able to eat maybe just a couple of muffins the entire time and just nibble the thing. But I thought it just got in me to finish it. I don't know. I don't know if it's explainable or something like that, because when you don't look to do anything epic, it's not epic too. To me, it wasn't. It was just something you guys had just engraved in me, like, we're going to finish this.
No, you explained it well.
Yeah.
You said, what is my team going to think of me? What is my family going to think of me? Zion went through your head. Like, those are the things that got you out of that spot. Now, what kept you going was just willpower, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you just kept going because you didn't want time out. You're going to give it everything you had. But here's the thing, like, when someone, you say you're not the guy that's going to try to inspire somebody, you're not you just want to do your thing and go on, like, but that's what inspires people. It's not ever going to be someone that is trying to inspire someone that's going to. It's when someone does something that it doesn't have to be this amazing feat that is just phenomenal. It has to be this thing to where someone has been given this obstacle that they feel has defeated them. And you see the defeat in them. But somehow this person figures out a way to fight their way through it. That's what inspires people, and that's what you did. It has nothing to do with trying to inspire. It has to be with the fact that you had this internal battle with yourself. And people saw it on your face that you 100% gave up.
Yeah.
But you didn't. You gave yourself one chance to fight back, and you fought back. And you fought back all the way to the end. And man, that is what's inspiring, and that's what people want to see. The other stuff is fake. All the other stuff that where people are trying to inspire people on Instagram and all this stuff, like, that's fake. Like, some of it is just made that way. It's still kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
But when you see someone truly do that, like, talk themselves into finishing something that they feel is unfinishable, but they're going to give it every damn last ounce they have to try to do it. And you did, Mike Taylor. You fought for 36 hours.
Yeah. When I talked to you on the radio at the very end, you're like, you're still running? Like, somebody be like, when did you start running? I'm like, yesterday at 8. And like I said, well, when you're in the moment, you don't know that the moment's there. I don't even know that I knew that that was even in me. And I'm me. I mean, I said, I don't know sometimes that you're there, things are going on, and you're like, you look back now and I'm like, how did I do that? I did not even know that was part of me. And I know myself, and I did not know that I could pull that out. And I think that's a really cool thing about ultras, is that it reveals things that you can do this. I mean, we're going on 10 years now. In some form or fashion, we've run everything from 300s to hundreds to this and that. But sometimes you're so lucky, and I do feel blessed, because maybe I would have overlooked it and so forth like that, or, and so forth. But I found something in me that I had no idea that I was looking for, or that it was even there, or that I was even remotely capable of pulling something out that far down the rabbit hole, and now I'll just go in the toolbox and be like, maybe you've been here before, and so forth. Like I said, I was in bad shape at Zion, but I was not no business bad shape. That was probably the deepest I've been down. And I honestly just looked back and I thought, man, I'd love to videotape this whole thing and be like, how did you do that? And like I said, I have to really just think it's something that's just in this whole team and East Coast Adventure is just ingrained into you, that and like I said, even me, I have to remind myself, and I didn't at the given point, that it's going to suck, and it sucked bad. It sucked worse than I ever thought it could suck. And like I said, I had no desire. It didn't bother me one single bit that I was going to be running for 35 hours. That didn't bother me at all. It was just the fact that I was quitting. That really just, when I sat down, I thought that really just irked me, that I had gotten to the point that I was going to quit. And like I said, I don't know how I come back out of that. I can't claim it to be this and that I could just reach in there and grab that tool at any time, because that would make 100 sound like it was easy, and it was not. It was anything but. I mean, But after I started running, I felt so much better. After I got back out there, I'm like, okay, everything's starting to come back together now and everything. This race is piecing together. I never gained any more time. We rode to some of the same people. It was so cool that the one lady that saved my race was parked right next to me camping when we got back. We finished minutes apart. When we walked back over to our tent, was putting everything down, I'm like, April, this is the lady that saved my race. And we didn't even realize we had been camping next to each other the whole entire event, and so forth. We'd spoke the night before, but you just kind of say hi to everybody and so forth like that. So it's just such a small world that you just don't realize that the people around you at these events, like I said, she didn't have to offer me anything.
Yeah.
But she did. She reached out, and I said, that's ultra running out there. You will not get that at a 5K, 10K. Yeah, there's those great stories out there where somebody stops and picks somebody up, but this is ultra running. It's different. It hits different.
How was the feeling getting to crossing the finish line?
That was tears. It really was, and it was just like you. I didn't expect everybody to still be there. Once again, I thought it's just going to be me. I mean, we're 35 hours into this. These rest of these guys have already hit trail. They've done their thing. They've got to go home to their families and so forth like that. And I get there, and everybody's still there. And you just like, why are they still here for me? Why? And they were just waiting for me to finish so they could take a picture and everything. And I said, seeing Nick a couple of miles before the finish line, Nick's always funny because you got to watch for him on the trail because he likes to hide, and like I said, he brought life back to me when I saw him because he's like, oh, are you still doing that? It was just, he I don't know. It was just it's a different feeling that you can't replicate or fake, as you said, or anything like that, to see all your friends and family standing there at the finish line after you've been running for 35 plus hours, to something that you ultimately were going to fail because you had quit. I didn't expect anybody to be there. I went there thinking I was on my own. I thought I was just going to do my thing and just finish the race, and like I said, it's just, I can't speak highly enough about everything this race taught me, about myself. And that's why I run, sometimes just to get more knowledge. So,
yeah, I mean, that's what's really cool is like, it can be any race where you learn something.
Yeah.
Be the worst ran race or the best run race. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You learn stuff about yourself, and that's what makes it so special. And sometimes you learn really hard stuff. Sometimes you gain stuff. And, I think you did both in this race.
Not intentionally, but like I said, that's usually where you learn. That's when you don't expect it. That's where it shows up, and it's so, I guess we're on the other side of it so much that it's easy to tell people you got to do this. And if you do this and you don't quit, or you eat this and you can't quit, you can't give up. And sometimes you don't know that's inside you, and when you get put in that spot. And I was put in it. Like I said, I don't expect it. It's humbling because I did not expect anything, especially the messages that I was getting, the next day and so forth. Like, I just thought I finished a race. That's all I'd done. I wasn't anything to anyone. So I only hope I can repay that to someone in the future. So,
well, I think the fact that you go into this stuff just trying to do what's best for you, like you're trying to finish a race and you don't think about all the other stuff. But I think character has a huge part in how you are in the race and how you hold yourself and show yourself through the entire race. That's what inspires people, and that's the thing. It's like, we have a ton of athletes that are all doing that. And they're all showing that positivity, and they're all caring for each other in a race. But then there's this one little nugget, every now and then, where someone just has a race that doesn't go their way. And you still show that. You still show kindness, you still are good to people, but yet you find this whole different, deep, dark place to come out of. And when you do that, like, you were never an asshole to anybody.
Yeah.
You weren't mean to anybody. And that's the thing that I can always say is like, and that's that is, I think, what makes things so special is when someone truly is in the worst place they can truly be in. That's when you see their true character. And when you are still a good person and you're still kind to people and you're still trying to help others, when you're in your worst place, that's 100% character. And that's Mike Taylor. You know?
Yeah.
And that's how you inspire people, because you are still out there fighting and just doing your thing. You're not impacting or bothering anybody. You're not, not talking down to anybody. You're doing your thing in your space, and you're still trying to help others around you. And man, that's what's inspiring, and that's what builds relationships. That's what builds East Coast Adventures. It's that stuff.
Well, I'm blessed that I can say that now that that has been ingrained in, and that we see the whole picture now, because sometimes we go into these events and it's me, 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 I didn't get this, or they were out of that or something like that, or it's just, things didn't go my way, using the word, you're putting your name out there before everyone else. And like I said, I don't run like that anymore. I just wanted to have a good time. I wanted to just converse and see people, and just see, man, at the end of the day, getting out there to run 100 miles in the woods or 60 miles in the woods or 30 miles, no matter where you DNF at, you'll get through that. But just being able to run in the woods, man, it just doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't. Yep. I don't know. I'm blessed. I don't know why. I don't know. I joke, 110 episodes to get on here, and it feels weird to be on this side of it for something that you didn't even intentionally, because I always had in my head that, hey, you're not going to be that epic runner. You're just a dude that just knows how to run, and you like having a good time, and you got a great ECA family, but you're probably not ever going to be on a podcast to ever inspire anybody. And I still don't think that, I hope I can tell somebody you're going to find stuff in yourself. I don't think I inspire anybody. I think I just tell somebody there's stuff in you that you just don't know the answers to yet, and they're out there, and you may not even know the question yet. But once you get out there, you're probably going to find it. You're going to come out a different person. I come out a different person after this race, knowing that there's something in me that I can get through hard stuff. And like I said, it's not always going to be. I knew it wasn't going to be a great race, but I didn't know it was going to be this bad. I just didn't. The stuff we get ourselves into. But like I said, that's what makes it, that's just my story, now. It'll be a race I'll look back on. And I will say it is one of the best races I've run in a long time, as far as like how it was put on. Those aid station volunteers, I don't know if they didn't have a Walmart hooked to the back of the dagon. They were cooking everything. There was nothing that you could absolutely just want they didn't have in some form, shape, or fashion at every single station. The guests, it was just a great race, and I was like, I'm just blessed to be able to take something from it.
Yeah. That's what's fun, is because everybody has a buckle that is their most favorite, or that is their most special. And it may be the ugliest buckle. Yeah. It may be the prettiest buckle, but it doesn't matter, because that buckle is so special to you. And that's what's cool. Like, that will be a very special buckle to you always.
It will. It will. This race will always hold something. I hope to go back one day and just kind of laugh and be like, man, you died there one time, and everything and so forth. But like I said, I don't feel like I've done anything just epically special. But like I said, I didn't give up somehow, and I wish I could say that was all scripted, or, that happens a lot. But like I said, it was tough. It was definitely tough.
Well, you made it through it, and you inspired a lot of people doing it. And I think you even actually surprised yourself.
I did.
So that's pretty amazing. Mike, we're coming to the end of this podcast, so I'm going to ask you a question that we ask every runner on this podcast, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Williams for some listener questions.
You might have some.
I will say, in 109, 10 episodes, wherever the hell we're at this point, Matt hasn't lost any of the questions in a long time.
No, they're all on here now.
Every now and then he forgets to ask a question, but other than that,
hey, someone coming the next day.
But Mike, why do you run? And why, like, at the end of the day, you're sitting in a car, staring at your feet, not even wanting to run, not wanting to finish a race, not even probably wanting to be in that spot. But you will yourself through and you finish this race. And at the end of the day, it's like, why? Why do you run? Why do you do this?
I think in some form or fashion, running is just me. I get relief from it, but then in the same token, it's work to run sometimes. It's not always like, oh, get to go run. I don't think it's always like that, but I think just the why I run is just because to be blunt, I love it. I really do. It loves me. I love it. Finding that point to where something is new, a different place to see, challenging myself. I started used to think, man, I get to be 48. I ain't got many more years in me, and competitively wise, I don't. But then you look at our team members and what these guys are accomplishing and girls the next 20, 30 years. I'm like, I don't know that we'll ever get away from running, to some form or fashion. It definitely gets tougher, but on the same token, we've got everybody of every age spectrum on our team that there is and so forth like that. Young to young old, however you want to look at it and everything, and we're all so special in our own way. And I think it helps me find my special. I think everybody brings something to, not necessarily just our team, but everybody brings something to ultra running or running in general. And they should all be recognized, and they're a piece of the puzzle. And I hope I'm one piece of that puzzle in the whole spectrum of everything. That when somebody sees me out there, they'll be like, it ain't always easy. Maybe I can get through this or something like that. Maybe that's overthinking it or whatnot. But I always think every runner out there has something going on, and this is something for them. Yeah, you get out there. Sometimes I think we all used to just run for fun, but I think sometimes it really just keeps us sane. For me, it does keep me sane, but it's also something that I just love doing, and it's just as simple as that. I don't know. I just love it. When somebody asked me, why would you want to run that far? I was like, we've all heard it. I had a bear be chasing me. I was like, that's cool. I said, but I'd still be running just because I love it. Mm-hmm. I think we all do in our own way. Sometimes it's this reason or sometimes it's that reason, but I think deep down I just love running. It does something for me. It's that simple.
I love it.
Yeah. All right, we got a few questions. Most of them we've already covered. They all want to know how you figure this stuff out. The first one is, she doesn't have a question. She just wants to say that you are amazing and a total beast, and you have true grit. That was somebody who helped you at the race. The next question is, how was the honey bun leaving Blue Heron?
Did I have a honey bun leaving Blue Heron?
Evidently you did.
Well, it must have been phenomenal. No. I kept the honey bun, and I finally just threw it away. I did not eat it. I think I carried that honey bun, I bet, for probably, it felt like 60 or 70 miles. When I pulled it out of my thing, it was all mashed up and everything.
Gosh, that reminds me. You had him salt pills.
Or he was acting like he was taking the salt pill and putting it in his pouch. Stinger, same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll make you feel good, and I'll take it. But, yeah, that was, Sam gave it to me because I was looking for it and everything, and I never ate it. I threw it away. Probably, I'm not kidding you, probably about 75 or 80. I finally threw that honey bun away. Never opened it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, there's your answer, Sam. I never ate it.
And she was so good about making sure I had everything wrote on my bag, and everything.
The next one is, was there one particular thing that you drew from while you were at your lowest, maybe while you were on all fours on the trail at 1 a.m.?
Not necessarily on all fours, because that was the rougher part out there. It's easy to sit around the campfire. I think the worst part was just being out there when you're literally, I think the last time I remember, because Corey was over 5 feet away taking a dump, and literally, but I think the last half, if you ever run a 100-mile race and you think there's any modesty left after 60, there's not. Like, people will not go off and like if I'm gonna go off and take a dump, I got to go off behind a rock and stuff like that. But some people were like, oh, there's about 3 inches off the trail. I think I'll just go right there. But so I'm laying there on the ground just on all fours puking. He's about 15, 20 feet over, just taking a dump and everything. And I'm like, this is my life. And there's like 4 guys and everybody and a girl standing around, we're just all, and runners will come through. It's like, hey, is everybody okay? He's like, yeah, he's taking a dump. He's puking, that's a 100-mile race, it's so, there's no modesty at all. Actually, you have to just be like, it is what it is. At this point, you don't care. I don't want to take another 10 steps off the trail either.
Well,
it's crazy out there. Running like a half of no business. You'll see some.
When I ran Georgia Joy, there was nobody around me. Like,
no, this was pretty, because you had the cutoffs and everybody was pretty grouped together. So, boy, if you stopped and puked or peed or pooped or anything, you had a crowd. You had people.
If you're doing any of the 3 Ps, you're in
trouble.
Wow. Okay. The next question is, how on earth did you change your mindset in the moment?
Once again, I don't know if it was a moment, but it just hit me when I got in the car. Like, look at you. You're sitting in someone's car at an aid station, and you have an hour left, and you're going to go back and tell your buddies when you're all swapping war stories and everything that you decided to quit in a Hyundai, whatever, like that was where you're. That was one of the last things that was just like, I don't even know what Tasha drives, but it was a nice car. It was like a hybrid something. Everything had dang good butt warmers and good heat. So, but I was just like, you can't even say that you timed out because you're sitting inside this car and you have an hour left. I was like, how's that gonna look like? And like I said, my stomach was starting to feel better. And I'm like, why would you even quit right here inside somebody's car? How could that possibly make any sense? And that was just a turning point right there when I finally got my stomach back. Like, you're going to time out. Like I said, if you don't make it to the next aid station, that's a whole nother story than I was sitting inside a heated car and I decided to quit with an hour left to go.
Yeah, the war story sounds better when you're on the trail.
Yeah.
The car. All right, the next one is, he tried to type his question into the question box, but it was so long that he actually had to DM us. But he wants answers. So we've already kind of covered this, but we're going to make this like a specific question. When you were sitting in front of that fire, almost completely defeated, what question did you ask yourself? What finally clicked and made you stand up and finish? I find myself doing this when I push deep into a goal, and there's always a question I end up answering that pushes me to the finish.
Just what you guys would think of me. Specifically, you, David, and Chris. Because Chris had already come by and talked to me a couple of times. And he kept saying, what can I do? And I know it was just what you guys would have said or what you all would have done for me. And I don't think Chris didn't do anything because I was very good at convincing him that I was done. I had convinced myself I was done. So when I can convince myself, I was very adamant the last 10 miles that I can convince those guys, that I'm done. I'll tell them whatever I need to. And like I said, it was just when it finally started like hitting me, is like, how are these guys going to look at me after this? And not that that's a good reason to get up, but when you have time to get up and you quit, that's different than hey, I didn't make it, or and so forth like that. I don't consider a DNF to be a bad thing. You learn from it, you grow from it. It happens to, I think if you do this long enough, you're probably going to have one, or you're probably not. Maybe you're pushing that envelope a little bit more. If you always stay safe, then you'll never have a DNF. You just won't. If you stay in your comfort zone, you won't have a DNF because there's nothing to risk. But like I said, I think one of my biggest things was what you guys how you all would have had this. I never envisioned this conversation, but on the other side of that, everybody talking about belt buckles and so forth like that. And I'm like, in my mind, I would have known, like, I quit. I would never had to tell anybody that I still felt good after that hour. I could have kept that to myself, but I would have always known. I was very adamant on telling, David, I knew after Zion, by the time I got up there and had sat around for an hour, I thought I felt good. I should have told the guy, take me back. Will you take me back? And I that just kept lingers for years now.
Yeah.
And I'll go back at some point, but I just don't think I could have faced you guys and just not in my head been like, this is what we do, but I quit on you guys. So I don't know. Maybe that's cheesy, or, maybe it's just pride or whatnot. But like I said, I just don't think I could have looked at you guys the same, knowing in my head that I quit with an hour left. I don't know. And that's something you all ingrained into me.
Yeah.
That's cool that you all had done that. It's not a pride thing like, oh, I want to be considered a macho dude. It's like you guys just put me that if there's something left, we've got to find it. And that's what I found somehow. I wasn't looking for it, and somehow it surfaced. Like I said, that was what I didn't want to one, lie to you guys, or have to keep that to myself, or or face you guys.
I think that's something that we've all ingrained in each other, good or bad. It's like, what is, you're out there struggling. What would they think? What are they going to say to you? Knowing that you can keep going, but you don't. Like you said, you can convince yourself into anything, and you can lie to anybody about how you feel, don't feel, quit, don't quit. But that's good that we all hold each other accountable.
Well, you weren't even there, but you were in my head.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest thing about it, is that we've all been there to aid each other, and we've all been there to piss each other off to a certain point. You need to eat this, or you need to do that. You're not doing that wrong. But once you get it in your head that I don't care what he says, he's pissing me off, I'm pissing him off, and so forth like that. If you can't pull it from inside and know that you guys are in your head, and everything, like I said, you weren't even hundreds of miles, 100 miles away and so forth like that. But you're still right there, and that's the greatest thing that you can carry with you, is that I don't have to have, and like I said, I had told Micah before, I was like, hey, I don't want no slack when I get there and everything, and so forth like that. But that's not necessarily going to be what, I don't think he could have made me get up, though. He can be mean. It's like, well, you're going to go, and you can get mad about that. But like I said, that's still not going to save your race if you don't want it. And like I said, what you guys put inside of me, it's not visible to other people or verbal to other people. They can't see it and they can't replicate it and so forth like that. You just can't duplicate that. That took years of engraving. It's not. Can't go out here to the next race and sign up and be like, oh, Mike Taylor, he didn't quit. It's still got to be deep down somewhere. And I didn't know it was there. I didn't know you guys were inside my head like that. Congratulations. You say,
Mike's dying,
I was, and everything. That's the things about you discover about yourself, that there's things in there that you had no clue. I just did not know that I would be relying on that. It wasn't a weapon that I had in there that was going to surface up at any given point when I call on it, per se. So, different.
Well, the fact that you were able to even do that, though, like, not give up on yourself after you'd already given up on yourself, that speaks a lot, though, about you and your mindset, as far as, like, at least giving it a fair shot.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I was going to say this earlier, but you were on a roll, and I didn't want to interrupt you. But like when she gave you the Zofran, a lot of people would have took that and just still said, my stomach's still messed up. They wouldn't have given it a fair shot because they'd already talked themselves out of it.
Right.
And I think that's a lesson in itself, is that to be able to reset your mind, if someone does offer you something or goes out of their way for a gesture to help you, to remember that it may actually fucking help.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like sometimes we get so caught up in how bad we are that people are trying to help us, and we truly can't give them the opportunity to help us.
Right.
Because we've already talked ourselves out of it.
We want that audience of quitting.
Yeah. And I have to give you kudos, because as bad as you were, you still actually tried to see if that would help you, whereas most people wouldn't have.
Well, you guys have seen every race. I mean, for some extent, we've shared it, been there for each other, etc. So it's cool that you can see the whole story, and where this takes. Maybe you're fortunate enough to gain this kind of knowledge in year 1, 2, 3, or whatever it is, or whatever age. But, it took me 10 years of this to get here. And I didn't know it was there, and like I said, I once she gave me that, I'm like, what if that does help me? And it was just in my head, like right then, like there might be a chance. And I didn't know that there was even a chance that there might be a chance.
When you thought there was a chance, was there a no shit moment that you're going to have to run?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but in my mind, I had the little walkie-talkie art that we have and everything, and I'm talking to my wife, and she's like, it shows you're going to finish at 6:00 tomorrow. I'm like, I was like, that thing's way wrong, April. I said, because I've not been running for the last 2 hours, so it doesn't know what it's doing. I'm going to be done about 1 or 2 o'clock. So, fuck that thing and everything. And then the more I kept running, I'm like, man, my math ain't mathing at all here.
That thing might be done.
I was like, son of a bitch, it's like freaking 2 o'clock. I'm still running 2. I'm still running 3. Still running 4. I was like, holy crap, I've never ran this long in my life. But now, once you get to I kept telling myself, you get to 80, you really only got 10 more miles left. Because once you get to 90, you're there. You could never quit with 90. No. You can't really quit with 80. 75 is kind of like this break point. So when I had died there at 65, I'm like, I really only need 10 more and I'll feel safe. Make it till daylight, as the old saying goes.
Yep.
And I said, live to fight another time. And once I did make it to daylight, you go to aid station, they're like, the sweeper just left the last aid station. You're like, damn it. I just left that last aid station like freaking, hour and a half, 2 hours ago. I was like, I'm going to have to really keep moving this. And so that was just constant. But, and the miles kept going and the time kept adding up. And I'm like, well, at this given point, most of the people in the back of the pack are kind of grouped together to some extent. They want to go through an aid station a little quicker, but, you got to know each other, at that given point, because you're all living on a prayer at that point. The back of the packers at 30 plus hours are, you know each other by what their attitudes and what they're going through, etc. So I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a learning curve.
I know.
Sure.
When I got done with the firewater, David was there taking pictures and congratulating all of us. And I go, "What? Did Mike finish? Mike done?" And he goes, "No." He got 12 and a half miles. I said, I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, he's got 12 and a half miles. I'm like, I thought he'd be done by now. He goes, what's a 30-something hour cutoff? I'm like, yeah, but I just ran a race. I thought he'd be done by now.
And you crossed my mind because I'm like, I started yesterday. Matt will finish his entire 50K and I will still be running. And we've all said it before. I don't want to run for 30-something hours. I had no desire to run for 30-something hours. I look at the people and I'm like, why you're crazy. But man, there's so much to be learned when we're so blessed that we'll have a good race and we'll be done in, an exceptional amount of time. But the true grit and warriors out there, sometimes are the ones that I look at and be like, man, it took them 12 hours. I mean, first place, what was she? 20 hours, 20 hours. I'm like, she could have outrun twice. She could have outrun the course twice to what it took me to run one time. And I bet there she was probably at the house, like eating Taco Bell, by the time. And I'm just like, but I kept going. That was all I kept telling myself. It's not about you. It's not about you. Yeah. So I'm going to keep going. So I was blessed with a good race.
Well, and I think that's a good note to end on. And I also want to just say, as we close this podcast, if you take anything away from this entire 2-hour conversation that we've had, because we've been all over the place. We got caught into the origin of East Coast Adventure.
That's where we are. This is a typical East Coast Adventure meeting.
and then back to Mike's story. But if you take anything away from this, and that no business story in itself is a story alone. Period. And that is that whether you're the fastest runner, the slowest runner, it doesn't matter. Or even if you DNF. As long as you give yourself a chance and you're always truly trying, you will inspire people.
Yeah.
That is what matters.
Mm-hmm.
And that truly, it doesn't matter if you're the fastest person out there on the course. And it doesn't matter if you're the slowest. It doesn't matter if you've DNF this 100-miler 12 times and you've yet to finish one. It doesn't matter, because if you're being you, and you're doing everything that you can do, and you continue to improve yourself, you will inspire people, and you will motivate people, and you will help people in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And that is what Mike Taylor just did, and he had no intention of doing it, because he was just himself out there trying to do something for himself to make up for something that he could feel deeply that bothered him from years ago. And he did, and he found a way to do it. And, that's the thing. It's just as simple as one small gesture from a fellow runner to give you something to try to help you. And the next time that you're sitting in that same damn spot, truly take it and see if it will help you and give yourself an actual chance. Have an open mind to not already have talked yourself out of it. So if you take anything away from this entire podcast today, it is that you should never, ever count yourself out. Period. Mike Taylor, thank you for being on this podcast. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for everything that you have done with East Coast Adventures. You are by far one of the biggest people that have helped inspire me into being what I am, and I think we always help each other from the very beginning. You know, it's me and Mike are the OGs of Madisonville ultra running here, and we never envisioned what this would be to what it is today. But I'm very blessed to have met Mike. We were both going through some really hard things in our life when we crossed paths, and we needed each other at the time, and we didn't even know it. And it has led to a friendship that will, go to the grave together.
Yep.
And we were lucky enough to drag poor Matt in the middle of it. So Matt is right here with us, and this family has grown. As you see the race directors out there, please make sure that you always, if you can, thank Mike, thank Matt, thank Micah, and thank Chris, and thank Brandon, because they do a lot of things behind the scenes that nobody sees and does. And, everybody's just good advocates to the trail running community. And truly, that's what makes this sport so special. And it's not just East Coast Adventures. I mean, just like Mike was talking about, and how well No Business was ran, and that's Brian, Gordon, and Shelley out there doing the things and getting the volunteers. And we would not be what we are in this East Coast area without all of these amazing RDs. And that's why this podcast is here, is so that we can help share stories of runners and RDs and tell the stories just like Mike's. So we love you guys. Thank you for listening.
Peace.